executive director for People for the American Way, you all deal with policy related items all the time. This is a policy dynamic. It did not require, however, federal legislation to enact. So you as mayor of Ithaca, New York, how did you convince members of your community, advocates and non-advocates, and also members of council? How did you convince them this was a good way to figure out better policing in our city?
Well, the beauty of this, and Dr. Ritchie, I think you just put your finger right on it, which is that if we're gonna wait for the federal government to solve the issues in American policing, we're gonna be waiting for a long time, right? Because Congress is Congress, and because they actually don't directly control these police departments. The beauty of some of these reforms, and the reforms that we compiled as part of People for the American Way, which I should say, by the way, our brand new board member, our newest board member of People for the American Way, is the terrific Reverend Jamal Bryant, who was just featured in your last segment. We put out this report that allows mayors to take action right away, right? It's a compilation of policies and procedures, some of which require votes from your city council, some require some special funding, but most a mayor of good intentions can actually implement immediately, including this polygraph test and psychological review for officers before they join the force. So you can jump right in if you just go to peoplefortheamericanway.org, look at our All Safe report and see what in that report could your mayor be doing right now to keep your community safer.
For those who may be wondering, the US Supreme Court, they have upheld that officers can be mandated to take polygraph examinations prior to employment and during employment. Ben Jealous, mutual friend of both of ours, I had a conversation with him, this was months back, but he was talking about the same issue of aggression. And he made a noteworthy conclusion based on the data. He said, listen, if you have a person, and I'm paraphrasing our dear brother, but he said, if you have a person that has an aggression factor of, let's say 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, but they have a racism factor of, let's say 4, that person will likely be a problem as a cop. If you have it the other way around, where they have a racism index of 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, but they have a very low aggression standard, you may not actually get to a problematic issue with that person. And then when they align together, 9 for racism, 9 for violence or aggression, you got a serious problem on your hands. Break down some of that data and how that science correlates into a better policy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We should just be very honest, and this is a conversation that happens in the Black community all the time too. We want to eliminate racism, right?
Yes.
But we have very little control what's actually happening in your hearts and in your minds. What we do want to control is what happens, what you do with your body to our body. Right? And if you walk around in your head and you have all sorts, that's fine. But when it comes time to hire, to allow people into college, to not shoot people for no reason in the street, what we don't want to see is that implicit biases making the leap to action. And so it turns out that the officers who have the highest scores for aggression and authoritarianism are the ones who are most likely to shoot and kill somebody. This last segment that you actually just did about that Black officer down in Atlanta who killed that young Black teen because he stole his car. I think if you unpacked that, you would not find necessarily an implicit bias that he thought, okay, he's a Black teen, I need to kill him. I think you'd find that maybe he was embarrassed. He was embarrassed that it was his car being stolen, that he didn't want to lose face in front of his own department. And so often, the last thing that a person who's killed by the police officer does is insult the manliness of that officer, either by calling them a word, speaking down to them, or not complying. I don't mean like not complying with an official order, but not being compliant to them. And so when you do these psychological exams, you can screen out people who score high on certain questions like, when I walk into a room, everyone needs to be silent. When I make a suggestion, everyone must accept it. I am going to become a police officer so that people finally have to listen to what I have to say. When people score very highly on those test questions, no matter what their implicit views on race, you should be very, very wary of hiring them into your force because they're the ones who are most likely to commit violence.
Let's talk about the actionable data you were able to curate because of the program. You stated that roughly 75% of individuals you all turned away. They passed the physical exam, they otherwise qualified to be police officers. 75% you turned away because they failed the psychological evaluation. That means, dear brother, if I'm making the science congruent, that means that well over half of individuals that typically will apply to be a cop may not be mentally fit to do so. Explain that, unpack that for us.
Well, I can only say so far, though we are starting to track nationwide. I can only say so far that those were the numbers in Ithaca. What I can also tell you is that any mayor at all of our cities, wherever you live, whoever's in charge of your municipal government is probably settling a lawsuit or two right now, either from a police officer that's suing the municipality, from somebody who's suing that police officer. Millions of dollars are spent every year. Nationwide, it's hundreds of millions of dollars settling these lawsuits. I can tell you that after we instituted this test, none of those lawsuits came from our officers who had passed the test. All of those lawsuits came from officers we hired before we had the test implemented. That's just a fact.
100% of the people that passed the test gave you 0% of problems on the force.
That's exactly right. It is better. It is more efficient than training officers to do a good job. Better than training in de-escalation. It's certainly better than hoping officers do a good job. Just like in any field, if you can hire people with the right set of attitudes, beliefs, postures, if you can hire third grade teachers who can control a room with their voice and their body language, if you can hire people who are respected on the street in the first place, then you can prevent violence down the road.
Mr. Mayor, always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your thoughtfulness and your advocacy. You're making a difference in this world. Tell people how they can follow you, check out your work.
You can check me out at Savante Myrick, which is spelled the usual way. Hopefully they have it in the Cairo. And check us out at People for the American Way. We're fighting for truth, justice, and the American way every single day.
Always a pleasure, dear brother. Look to have you back on the show very soon.
Thanks.
All right, remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.
Welcome to Unbossed and happy Halloween. Yeah, happy Halloween. Yeah, I was talking to a member of Team Turner and he had mentioned, wouldn't it be nice if some of these politicians who answer to their owner donors had to dress up like their favorite corporatist donor? How about Senator Joe Manchin as Cole? Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Oh, I got the one and only Jessica Burbank with me today, and we are going to delve into how a huge progressive win, Jessica, in Brazil. Hello, somebody. How President Obama spoke out in support of Social Security with all kinds of passion, and a deep dive into the water crisis in America. Jessica, so glad to have you back.
Always good to be here and good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, a whole lot of spooky stuff going on. I couldn't help myself. So, just to give folks an update on Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi's husband, we know that there are new details out about what happened. And last Friday at about 2 a.m., a guy by the name of David Wayne DePape broke into the Pelosi San Francisco home. Many of you are probably already familiar with this story. We just want to give you an update. It was terrible what happened to Mr. Pelosi, and this should not happen to anyone, anywhere, but especially in their home. So he shouted, the man when he came in, whereas Nancy, obviously the speaker, was his target. This was indeed a targeted attack. San Francisco police gave more details. Let's take a look at those details. With the attacker in the house, police say Paul Pelosi was able to make an open line 911 call around 2 a.m. on Friday. The dispatcher could hear what sounded like someone being threatened in the background and sent a high priority alert to law enforcement. When police arrived on the scene, they saw signs of forced entry, including broken glass. Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it. And that's coming from San Francisco Police Chief William Scott. A 42-year-old Wayne DePape is now facing the following charges. Let's take a look at those charges: attempted homicide, assault with a deadly weapon, aggravated burglary with serious bodily injury, threatening a public official or family member, elder abuse, and also burglary. And that report is coming from The Hill. We also have learned a lot about David DePape. DePape is a fringe conspiracy theorist, and he fell for online disinformation. And we know a lot of that is going on. Unfortunately, in this day and age, social media and the World Wide Web is both a blessing, and sometimes it can be a curse when people who are susceptible to these kinds of misinformation and disinformation are triggered. So this is David DePape appears to have made racist remarks, often rambling posts online, including some that question the results of the 2020 election. He defended Donald Trump and echoed QAnon conspiracy theories. On online posts under DePape's name, repeated false claims about COVID vaccinations or vaccines, questioned whether climate change is real, and displayed an illustration of a zombified Hillary Clinton eating human flesh. Yeah. So political violence in this form is absolutely never acceptable, and none of us should cheer this on. Whether or not we agree with someone from a political lens or view or ideology, what happened to Paul Pelosi was wrong. And some right-wingers, which is of no surprise, really took to Twitter and amped this up even more, if you can believe that. Let's take a look at what Donald Trump Jr. put out. Got my Paul Pelosi Halloween costume ready. Yeah, he did that. This is coming from Donald Trump Jr., so we shouldn't be that surprised. And then we have Clay Higgins, a member of the US House of Representatives Homeland Security Committee. He tweeted this and then he deleted it, but as we know, that footprint on Twitter is real. Clay Higgins. That moment you realize the nudist hippie male prostitute LSD guy was the reason your husband didn't make it to your fundraiser. What in the unholy hell? So yeah, this is one of your members of Congress. Jessica, any thoughts about this story?
Yeah, it's just crazy that we're at a point in time where people can be so emboldened by conspiracy theories, especially as you and I know the truth about what goes on in this country is infuriating. And it's fake stuff that is what gets people so angry that they're motivated to take some kind of action in this country. Like, I think everybody would be in the streets if they knew what was really going on in the country, but instead they're mad at fake stuff like QAnon. And it's really scary that they're willing to commit acts of violence off of stuff that is not real.
Yeah, it is. And this is serious because it could be anyone. A lot of people disagree with me, may disagree with you. And that's why we're highlighting this story. At a certain point, it can't be about where someone is on the political spectrum. This is about whether it's right or wrong for someone to invade somebody's home and viciously attack them. Yeah, absolutely, it is wrong. Certainly, I've had threats, and I know other elected officials who have. I've been on lists of people who have not had the best intentions. So I thank God Almighty, no violence has happened, but anybody could fall victim to this. So say again, whether it's coming from the right or the left or the middle, it doesn't matter. These kinds of acts are not appropriate. They just are not. And you're right, Jessica, the point that you made, there's so much to be mad about and up in arms about, to take to the streets about, but you do not, absolutely do not put your hands on somebody else. This is very sad. So glad the police officers have the person in custody, and let's hope that our discourse does not continue to devolve into this type of behavior. Now, on to some good news. Lula defeats Bolsonaro. Woo-wee! This is so good. This is good news. He defeats Bolsonaro, and Bolsonaro is out of here. Let's put up the shot of how close this race really was. I mean, they were fighting tooth and nail in this race, and luckily, the freedom fighting progressive, in this case, go ahead, Brazil. We got a lot to learn from you. Actually won this race. And thousands of Brazilians are now celebrating this victory. It was narrow, but it is a victory nonetheless. Take a look at this. Yeah, that is a beautiful, beautiful sight. And it marks a return for Lula, who was Brazil's president from 2003 to 2010, when he had great success. A former union leader born into poverty, Lula organized strikes against Brazil's military government in the 1970s. His two-term presidency was marked by a commodity-driven economic boom, and he left office with record popularity. For months, his opponent, Bolsonaro, peddled conspiracy theories similar to what we went through in this country about election fraud and calling for violence if he lost. Not what we went through, what we are going through, Jessica, right? Even at this moment, having a former president that believes such conspiracy theories, and having a GOP right now pushing these conspiracy theories, and at times calling for violence.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a huge win. I remember when Lula was originally put in prison in Brazil on charges that were ridiculous, right? This is what they do to politicians that are fighting for the people and fighting against corporations. And we know that he was annulled from those charges, so they were found to be false. But leaving office in 2011 with 90% popularity, he promised higher public spending. He had record poverty loss in Brazil because of his welfare programs. And then for people to take him out of office on ridiculous charges is insane. But I heard someone call this the CIA flop era in Latin America, as we see more and more leftists winning, which is really good to see. And we can all learn from his message, which was just to everyday people, you deserve the basic freedom to have good meals and hang out with your family. Really simple message, but something that's not guaranteed for all people, even in the United States.
That's exactly right, and that is the message. Clean air, clean water, clean food, just the basics. Even before we start reaching high, we just want to deal with the basics first. And going back to what Bolsonaro and his peddling of misinformation, disinformation, even telling people to get violent if they needed to. On Sunday, July 24th, in front of a mass audience, Bolsonaro called on his supporters to fill the streets on September the 7th in order to back his fabricated claims that the October election will be rigged. Ooh, that sounds exactly like this brother was taking a page out of the playbook of Donald J. Trump. Bolsonaro told a crowd to go to the streets one last time to target the Supreme Court, whose members he called a few black-clad deaf people who must understand what is the voice of the people, must understand the executive alongside Congress. This does sound very, very familiar. I wonder if Bolsonaro could hear the voice of the people. They have spoken, and Lula is back in office. Yes, he is. Let's put up this headline. Brazil, Bolsonaro threatens democratic rule, harasses Supreme Court, signals he may cancel elections, violates free speech. This is coming from Human Watch. I mean, just the fact that he feels as though he can do this, that he has that type of power. We know the quote, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And certainly Bolsonaro was using his power, attempting to use his power to amp up people, again, who may be predisposed to the kind of message that he was putting out and causing all kinds of confusion and dismay in Brazil. Another headline, Brazil's Bolsonaro, quote, bored by questions on COVID-19 death toll, the world's second highest. So he couldn't be bothered with that. Currently, 601,000 people have died. 601,000 people have died from COVID-19 in Brazil, with over 21.5 million cases total in Brazil. Those are kinds of things that Bolsonaro should have been focused on instead of conspiracy theories. He could have been answering the needs of the people. And what an awesome opportunity for any leader in the backdrop of COVID-19, or at the height of it, and even now in the shadow of it, because it's not gone, to do great and wonderful things for the people. But oh no, he was bored. And now with a true progressive in office, back in office in Brazil, the 77-year-old left this campaign on policies including exempting the lowest earners from income tax, raising the minimum wage, and upping investments in public services to create new jobs. Lula used his victory address to pledge to combat climate change and deforestation, issues observers say have not just been sidelined, but severely worsened under Bolsonaro's tenure. I mean, Jessica, it sounds as though the president-elect is raring to go and to continue where he left off and to do the things that any leader should do in times like these.
Yeah, I mean, Bolsonaro was burning rainforest, and Lula's win is a win for everyone around the world, because you'll hear people always say that the Amazon rainforest is the lungs of the world. The way that the rainforest absorbs carbon and emits oxygen is very important for our survival and reducing carbon emissions across the entire world. And so he was burning up rainforest to make more room for beef farming and grazing, which is insane. His priority was to export more beef as a commodity. What Lula's interested in is truly what is best for the people, not just in Brazil, but in the entire world, because he's really committed to reducing emissions, but also combating that deforestation. So a win for Lula is a win for all of us.
Yeah, it is. And to have his voice, not only in his country, but on the world stage, pushing other world leaders to do the same. I have many fantasies, but one of them is to see world leaders come together to deal with climate chaos, Jessica, in a very big way. You know, leaders often come together in times of war. You have allies come together. Why can't we come together to do something about what impacts the entire planet, and that is climate change? And I could just imagine the speeches that Bolsonaro is going, or excuse me, not Bolsonaro, Lula will give on this issue and the influence that he will have on other world leaders.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a big dream of mine as well. It's going to take all of us to do something about it. No one nation or group of nations can do it alone. And so, yeah, we need world leaders to be committed to it, and Lula's one of them.
Yeah, he is. That's absolutely correct. And it is the one thing that we do have to tackle. Well, not the one thing, but it's one of the major things that we could tackle as a world. Climate chaos has to be done as the world and not just a singular nation. So Brazil, congratulations. And to President-elect Lula, so glad you are back in office and cannot wait to see some of the great things that you accomplish with great people supporting you and around you. Brazil, we're watching, baby. We'll be right back.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. Now,
we'll see. We'll see. Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always change this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member,
Welcome back to the show. Let's get to it. Viewer comments. So we have on Twitch, Melanie says, Lula, with about 4 or 5 exclamation points. 1, even with voter suppression by Bolsonaro. Yes, he did. And it is so beautiful to know that so many people in Brazil were fighting very hard to make sure that Lula did have a victory. And Patricia says, and this is from our YouTube super chat, Nina, you are awesome. Thank you, Patricia. I receive all of that. I appreciate you. And we at TYT appreciate every single member, every single viewer. Thank you so much for lifting this network. And absolutely thank you for supporting Unbossed. I want to remind you that Brittany Griner is still in Russia, in prison, and we must continue to lift her family. I want you to know there has to be, we're gonna keep pushing. We need more light at the end of that tunnel. We need to create the light. So keep putting out on social media. If you do use social media, the hashtag we are BG. Will you do that? We need you to do that. The family needs you to do that. We at Unbossed are gonna continue to lift her up and lift her family up, and we're not gonna let anybody forget it. So you do the same thing. And then our Jackson, Mississippi, sisters and brothers, family and friends, still dirty water. And TYT, it's doing its part. We can't do it though without you. So go to tyt.com/relief. That is tyt.com/relief. Any amount that you can donate will help the cause. It's Jackson, Mississippi today. It could be where you live tomorrow. So we have to help our sisters and brothers and our family and friends. So join us in doing that. Now let's talk about the oligarchs. They suck, baby, big time. Yeah, they do. Because the way that they are making their money, crushing everyday people in this nation, crushing smaller business owners, crushing the environment, just, typically doing whatever it is they want to do without regard for anybody else. This is not the first time that oligarchs have taken over. Not at all. There's a stream of this throughout the history of this country and throughout the history of the world. Robber barons come to mind for me, but I won't give you that lecture today. Let's just stick with today in 2022, shall we? So Public Citizen put up an excellent tweet. Elon Musk now owns Twitter. Trump owns Truth Social. Zuckerberg controls Facebook and Instagram. Bezos owns the Washington Post. Kanye wants to own, or Ye, as he reminds us is his legal name, wants to own the Washington Post. Billionaires are buying our elections, and it's not a win for free speech or democracy. It's a win for billionaires. Public Citizen laid that out straight, as we all should be concerned about how the ultra wealthy are buying the venues and the vehicles by which free speech should happen so that they can control the messages that people get. This headline, extra level of power, billionaires who have bought up the media. Elon Musk joins a list of men to use their wealth in hopes of extending their political influence, coming from The Guardian. Again, this is not new. So Elon Musk's $44 billion takeover of Twitter is a chilling development in billionaires' desire to increase their political influence by buying up as many of the world's largest and most influential media brands, a leading British analyst has warned. That's coming from The Guardian. And this is what this analyst had to say. She said, it's another sign the super wealthy wish to control assets that give them an extra level of power. Whatever they may say, that's the reason why they buy them. And that's Claire Enders from Enders Analysis putting that out there. The billionaire class control of media is problematic, certainly for all of us, all venues. To have singular voices, have people with the greatest amount of money be able to purchase these vehicles is not good for representative democracy. It never has been, it never will be. And this is not just a phenomenon here in the United States of America, it is happening all over the world. Let's take a look at other vehicles by which the ultra wealthy control. So just 37 years ago, there were 50 companies in charge of most American media. Now, 90% of media in the United States is controlled by just 6 corporations. And those corporations are AT&T, CBS, Comcast, Disney, News Corp, and Viacom. This means that just 232 media executives are calling the shots for the vast majority of the information we are presented with, controlling a total big 6 net worth of over $430 billion. Thank you, Pathfinder, and thank you, Mira, for that. The idea is that, she goes on to say, when 6 corporations whose primary motivation are to ultimately profit as much as possible are in charge of what we consume, the narratives do not challenge the status quo in the ways that could inspire large-scale change. I'm not saying a New York Times article can't be plenty critical of the government or of the many social ills plaguing this country. As a whole, when reporting begins to feel the needs of the multi-million or billion-dollar corporation, it seeks to benefit this corporation no matter what. Jessica, I want, and keep that up, please. Keep that up. I want to focus in on something that Mira said, 2 very important points that she made. Is that the status quo does not change. That's one major point that she says. And then as a whole, when reporting begins to fulfill the needs of a multi-million or billion-dollar corporation, it seeks to benefit that corporation no matter the cost. Exclamation point on that, Jessica.
Absolutely, yeah. It's scary times when you've got 10%, the top 10% in the United States owning 70% of the wealth, those people control our society, even if we are to get money out of elections. When they own the media, they own the news, they own Twitter, which is regarded as the public square, they own Facebook. They will always control our elections and our political process. And this is just the consequence of having an economy that is run by and for people with money, by people with capital. They get to make decisions to direct how all of our resources are used and how. And we've got to get people all across the country to apply the same democratic principles that many of us value in government. I'm not going to say all of us because we know the state of our country very well. But many people value democracy, but for some reason don't apply that kind of thinking to how our economy should run. We should all have a say in how the public square is used and managed. It shouldn't be owned by one billionaire, but that's just the state of our country right now. And it's important to be very clear about that fact and its consequences, especially now with Elon just buying Twitter.
That's exactly right. And what is the role of the federal government? The federal government needs to take a tougher stand. They need to break up these companies and not allow monopolies of this type to even exist. This is a crisis point for us here in the United States of America. It really is. And we the people are gonna have to stand up and do something about it and make bigger demands. So let's go to the Uvalde. The Department of Public Safety lies to families. The families of loved ones lost in the Uvalde tragedy wanted some answers. But all they got from Steve McGraw, the head of the Department of Public Safety of Texas, was a slap in the face. Watch this video from a DPS meeting in Austin, Texas this past Thursday.
Accept responsibility, plain and simple. If DPS as an institution failed the families, failed the school, or failed the community of Uvalde, then absolutely, I need to go. DPS as an institution, right now, did not fail the community, plain and simple.
That was Steve talking. So guess what, Steve? You gotta go. You said if you failed, you were gonna go. Well, you gotta go. What this is, and let's play this next clip.
There's compelling evidence that the law enforcement response to the attack at Robb Elementary was an abject failure and antithetical to everything we've learned over the last 2 decades since the Columbine massacre. The only thing stopping a hallway of dedicated officers from entering room 111 and 112 was the on-scene commander who decided to place the lives of officers before the lives of children. 1 hour, 14 minutes and 8 seconds. That's how long the children waited and the teachers waited in rooms 111 to be rescued.
Systemic failure is an understatement. So what changed for these families? Not a whole lot. Steve McGraw, he vowed to fire any member of his department who did not do their job that day. The day a gunman massacred 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary in Uvalde. This is what he vowed to do. And at the Texas Highway Patrol captain's meeting on August the 15th and 16th, the minutes document him saying, quote, and oh, by the way, no one is losing their jobs. Quite the contrary, all leaders in Region 3 did what they were supposed to do and have stepped up to meet the moment. Loved ones of children lost made sure to check him on his lies. Watch this.
You have disgraced the state, your position, and the people. The officers still under your supervision, Maldonado, Betancourt, and Kendall, have been proven to have been culpable. And with new information dropping just about weekly, we know that there will be others. Well, Steve, the time is now. If you're a man of your word, you'll resign.
If you, Steve, are a man of your word, you will resign. And here's more context on DPS's failures. In total, 376 law enforcement officers, a force larger than the garrison that defended the Alamo, descended upon the school in a chaotic, uncoordinated scene. But it wasn't just Steve McGraw and those officers who failed these families. It was also their governor, Greg Abbott. Let's not let him off the hook at all. He failed as well. This headline, Abbott spent hours at a fundraiser after Uvalde shooting. What in the unholy hell? So this man is at a fundraiser after 19 children and 2 teachers were massacred. Their lives were not important to him, not important enough to him to cancel a damn fundraiser. That governor needs to go based on that alone. Steve shouldn't be the only one resigning. This man should resign in disgrace as well. And if he doesn't resign, come on, put him out. Because raising money, Jessica, was more important to him than being with those families and showing some care and some compassion. Money was more important. Jessica?
Yeah, get Greg out, get Steve out. And I understand there's a lot of people who maybe have never found themselves on the receiving end of police violence and may not understand our calls for reimagining public safety. 40% of Uvalde's city budget goes to their police. I'm sitting here in LA where $3.2 billion annually goes to the police. And this was a situation where they showed up and waited an hour and 17 minutes before even entering the school, which went against their active shooter training protocol. And you're gonna say that they didn't fail? Not only do they commit acts of violence against the community all of the time, sometimes they are acting within their corrupt protocol, but this was a case where they failed to protect children. We all have to understand that the police failed in this case, that's without question, and we all have to think about how those resources could be better used to keep our community safe, because it was a mother who ran inside the building to get her child against what the police wanted her to do. We keep ourselves safe, not the police, and we've got to do something to change this corrupt system.
And they tried to charge her, they took her through the ringer. She did what any mother or father would have done, or other loved ones, to try to get in there and get her baby. That's what a mama does. And she did just that. And Abbott is always, not only has he put money ahead of the needs of the people of the state, guns as well, guns over people. In 2021, he made it incredibly easy to stockpile weapons. Texans can carry handguns without a license or training starting September 1st. After Governor Greg Abbott signs permitless carry bill into law. Because guns are they God. I mean, this man, so money and gun, making it very clear that he does not care. The policy, follow the policy. Very clear, it's crystal clear. There is no ambiguity here when it comes to what Greg Abbott worships and treasures. But this is nothing new for Abbott. Check out this tweet from 2015. I'm embarrassed. Texas #2 in the nation for new gun purchases, behind California. Let's pick up the pace, Texans, at our NRA. So he had the nerve to tweet at the NRA. And they control so many politicians on both the federal and state level, you will lose count. This is what this man said. He's embarrassed to be #2 in the nation for new gun purchases. No, he should be embarrassed because he did not show the requisite concern for them 19 babies and their 2 teachers. He should be embarrassed that raising money for his campaign was more important than the lives of those children and their parents and other family and community members who were grieving and continue to grieve to this day. He should be embarrassed that the Department of Public Safety failed. That's what he should be embarrassed about. He should damn resign, absolutely he should. So like this country needs more guns, we don't need any more guns. We absolutely do not. Check out this stat on gun ownership all over the world. And look where the United States of America is. This is the top 10 countries with the highest gun ownership. Civilian guns owned per 100 people. I want you to look at this. I want you to let this marinate. And if you are listening and not looking, United States is #1, 120.5. We go down to Yemen, 52.8 per 100 people. Uruguay, 37.4. I'm just skipping. It's tied with Canada, 34.7. It's just a case if you're just listening and not looking. But if you're looking, you see. Cyprus, 34. Finland, 32.4. But the good old United States of America, 120.5. Because the Second Amendment in this country is treated as if it is absolute. But other things, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, why isn't that treated like it's absolute? We could treat that as if it's an absolute right in the United States. The framers of the Constitution could have never imagined the type of firepower that would be created in the 21st century, and that weapons of war would be allowed on the street where people live. They could never have imagined that. And so the fact that we are not evolving on this issue, not even willing to have common sense gun policy. Well, I take that back. Many American citizens and those even people who carry guns are willing to have a common sense conversation. But it is the politicians that are bought off by these special interests, Jessica, who are not willing to change policies and have these common sense gun laws.
Yeah, it was disgusting. Every time there's a mass shooting in a Republican state, there's always this press conference where people will start combating the narratives before they come out, where they say, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Same thing with the abortion issue, where they say, you have to protect life. You have to protect life. This is all about life. If truly they cared and they believed that that was the problem, we would see unprecedented spending on mental health care in these states. If they truly believed that they should defend life, we would see unprecedented public spending on protecting mothers and giving them childcare and maternity leave. But these are not people who fundamentally care about the constituents that they're supposed to be serving. There's no better demonstration of them not caring about people than them only giving lip service to issues while taking a ton of money to the gun lobby and doing next to nothing to what they identify as the real problem.
Yeah, follow the money and follow the actions. Abbott's policies were practically an open invitation for what happened. The Uvalde massacre, yeah, it was. Let's put up that headline. On May the 16th, the shooter purchased an AR-15 rifle made by the manufacturer Daniel Defense, a known supporter of right-wing politicians. Maker of rifle in Texas massacre is deep-pocketed GOP donor. Political contributions by the owners of the Georgia-based Daniel Defense show the financial clout of the gun industry, even as NRA spending declines. And coincidentally, Daniel Defense released this social media ad the very same day. And I'm telling you, Jessica, I am gritting my teeth right now because I want to say some things that are not necessarily PG in this moment, but let's keep looking at that. Let me put it back up. Train up a child in the way it should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, these fools had the pure, unadulterated gall to use scripture and got this baby sitting here in this ad with this rifle. So it was the culmination of horrendous failures and lies by Steve McGraw and DPS and Greg Abbott and the obscene gun fetish exacerbated by the gun lobby. What reasonable, rational person, thinking person would think that this kind of ad is okay? And then to use scripture in that way, Christian scripture anyway, many religions, but they use Christian scripture to say, raise a child up in the way that it should go. So, but after he got his fundraising money, as children lie dead, Greg Abbott wanted to assure everyone with a bold-faced lie. Take a listen.
What happened? It could have been worse. The reason it was not worse is because law enforcement officials did what they do.
And we know that what that governor said was a lie. Reminds me of something my grandmother once said. You can put truth in the river, 5 days after lie. Lie gon' catch up. And I'm saying it the way grandma said it. In other words, this man's lies have caught up. The massacre, the disregard and disrespect, and the fact that this man and others like him, because he's not the only one, they answer to the God of money and the God of guns. Mass shootings all over this country. America, we can do better. We'll be right back after this.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. Now,
We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me to Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute. I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good boss.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always change this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back. Now on to my favorite part of the show. We have TYT member, Travel Nurse Dragon, and thank you for being a traveling nurse. Nurse Dragon says, Abbott judges LGBTQ people for who they love while he loves guns. Seems a bit more than ironic. I agree with you, Travel Nurse Dragon. And on Twitch, Start and Park says, I love these names, Jessica. Lord. Start and Park says, imagine having $1 billion and wanting more control over other people's lives. You have enough money for several generations, yet you want more control. Sad. Sad indeed, Start and Park. Sad indeed. And from our YouTube super chat, we have Henry. And Henry says, love you, Nina, respect. Thank you, Henry, so much. Sending that love back to you and all of our supporters, everyone that supports our TYT family of shows. And thank you so much for viewing Unbossed. Please follow us, share, like, and share the link with some of your friends and your frenemies. Tell them this is a show they do not want to miss. Do that for me. I appreciate it. Watch this.
Some of you here are on Social Security. Some of your parents are on Social Security. Some of your grandparents are on Social Security. You know why they have Social Security? Because they worked for it. They worked hard jobs for it. They have chapped hands for it. They had long hours and sore backs and bad knees to get that Social Security. And if Ron Johnson does not understand that, if he understands giving tax breaks for private planes more than he understands making sure that seniors who've worked all their lives are able to retire with dignity and respect, he's not the person who's thinking about you and knows you and sees you, and he should not be your senator from Wisconsin.
Ooh, baby, mic drop. I am sitting here saying, amen. I want to get out of my seat. President Obama did the daggone thing. He brought the requisite fire and brimstone, baby, to the moment as he stumped in Wisconsin for Mandela Barnes, saying, go on and send Ron Johnson home. Send him home. Because over Social Security, send his behind home. They worked for it. Ooh, did y'all feel that? I still feel it right now. It was an amen moment. Jessica reminded me of some of them rallies we went to. It also reminds me of somebody else I know. Take a look at this.
Multi-millionaires and billionaires and nothing will fundamentally change for you. Well, Queens, I got a message. If nothing fundamentally changes for multi-millionaires and billionaires, then nothing fundamentally changes for you and you and you and you. I'm mad as hell, and I know I'm a black woman. Last time I checked. And I know sometimes people talk about the angry black woman, but I'm gonna tell you something. If you ain't mad as a mofo about what's going on here, something's wrong with you. Mad with a purpose. So as an angry black woman, we taking applications. Y'all can be mad as hell with us. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. Mad about a system that allows CEOs to make money hand over fist while other folks got to grovel for a living. Mad at the fact that we don't have leaders who won't equivocate standing up for the people. Mad that folks are living out on the streets. Mad that people are too afraid to go see a doctor because they can't afford it. Mad because our babies need to be educated and our teachers need to be paid. But we gonna get glad.
Yeah. We're gonna get glad because we're gonna do something about this. And it was such a delight to see President Obama bring that kind of energy because it is the gravity of the moment. And we need leaders in the elected ministry to not continue to be cool, calm, and collected when people are suffering, not to be cool, calm, and collected when we definitely have a clear and present danger known as today's GOP, especially on the federal and state levels of government. There's no time to play games with it. It's time to show the emotion and the intelligence that goes with righteous indignation. Jessica, we know a whole bunch about righteous indignation. That was at the Queens Bridge, as you and I were talking about at the break when we made a comeback. The point of me showing that clip is this is how Sister Turner rolls at all times.
And there's a reason for that. It's because everything we know and love is on the line, which is something I believe you have said. And I remember knocking doors on the Sanders campaign, and I knocked the door of this, elder man, and he said, I see you're with the Bernie Sanders campaign. I'm just gonna let you know right now that I think anyone coming over the southern border should be shot as soon as they cross it. And I said, listen, I don't agree with every politician on every issue, and I understand you might be worried about keeping a job because keeping a job is really hard, and corporations buying up cheap labor from immigrants to exploit them is not right, and our jobs going overseas is not right. My dad works construction, I get it. And I'm worried about people like my parents because they worked hard their entire lives and Social Security isn't enough for them to retire on. And this same man who just said that touched the side of his house, which was falling apart, and he nearly broke down and cried and said, I'm on Social Security with my wife. She had to move away, so she's working. And we're in our 70s right now, just so that we could get by. And he ended up committing to caucus for Bernie Sanders. Social Security is an issue that working people across the country care about. We need to be bringing this fight, especially when just ahead of the midterms, Republicans are threatening cutting Social Security and Medicaid. That is such an unpopular policy with people across the political spectrum. We need to be talking about this 24/7.
Yeah, and I wish that Dems had started talking about this much earlier. To think that abortion was going to be a silver bullet is the wrong approach. It's one of many issues that we could use to galvanize people of good consciousness to come together. But the economics in that story that you told, Jessica, you can multiply that man and his wife. And you know why his wife had to move away? Because if they make too much money, their Social Security gets cut, which is asinine. The system itself, and that is what we are talking about. There are systemic failures in the United States of America. The whole notion of working and being poor should not go together. Folks stringing 2, 3, 4 jobs together and they still cannot make ends meet. It is a systemic failure. It is a policy choice or lack thereof. And so we can make new and different policies. So meanwhile, Rick Scott is trying to cover his own behind. Let's put up this headline from The Hill. Rick Scott, I don't know one Republican in favor of slashing retirees' benefits. You know why he's trying to cover his behind? Because see, elders not playing with this. Don't come for their Social Security. And they should be upset, and everybody should be upset about this. Because if you live long enough, it's a generation ahead and a generation behind. But all of us, if we live long enough, will be in that situation. So don't come for the elders' Social Security. But let's take a look. Rick Scott gonna say he don't know. Well, we gonna show him just in case. Because I know he watching the show right now, Jessica. Let's show him the Republicans who are in favor of slashing the benefits of retirees. So you got House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy on this list. Senator Ron Johnson is on this list. Rep. Chip Roy is on this list. Rep. Jason Smith. Rep. Jim Jordan, with an embarrassment from state of Ohio. Rep. Mike Simpson and Senator Rick Scott. But yet he said, he don't know, he doesn't know. I don't know one Republican in favor of slashing retirees' benefits. It's a lie. Just a total lie. So come on, people, you got to get out there. You have to get out there to vote, and you got to vote your interest. Jessica and I definitely understand that in some cases you are voting for the lesser of the two evils. We get it. See, we are not the ones. We're not gonna sugarcoat this thing. But what we are saying to you that a clear and present danger right now, the GOP, the current GOP on the federal level, coming for Social Security, coming for Medicare, coming for Medicaid, it is wrong. And so you have got to do what you can to make sure that these people do not get into power. And then once we help secure a democratic victories, then we need to hold them accountable. All elected officials should be held accountable. Accountability, speaking of that, the water crisis in America. And this is all over America. This is not just in Flint, Michigan, not just Jackson, Mississippi. And you've heard me emphasize, underscore, bold, underline, exclamation point, and everything else I can do with this. Highlight it. Water is a basic necessity, and it is something that we cannot play around with. And so we've discussed the water crisis that is happening in Jackson, Mississippi. We will continue to talk about that because it is just a canary in the coal mine, similar to the Flint water crisis, on things that are happening all over this country. We will continue to push this. Watch this.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer directing state resources after people in Benton Harbor were told not to drink the water over fears of dangerous lead levels.
Residents in working class neighborhoods of West Baltimore are awaiting updates on whether or not their water is safe to drink after city officials announced they found E. coli bacteria in the supply.
Just days after Hawaii dealt with those torrential rains, now a new threat tonight, the toxic water crisis now unfolding. Hundreds of thousands of people could potentially be impacted by this. In fact, residents complaining water from their kitchen tap smells like gas.
Rivers and creeks across northern New Mexico are choking on sooty debris.
We are having the best months, one of the best monsoon seasons that we've ever had, but we can't capture any of the water because of the fire.
The fire. The Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak blaze that started as a prescribed burn in April.
So as you can see from this montage, this is happening all over the country. And before we go any further, let's talk about the Clean Water Act of 1972. The CWA is the principal law governing pollution control and water quality of the nation's waterways. The object of the CWA is to restore and maintain the chemicals, physical, and biological integrity of the nation's waterways. And that's coming from the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. Has that held up though? No, absolutely not. It's not held up. Crisis moment when it comes to the lack of clean water in the United States. So here's info from a 2021 study from a Consumer Reports and The Guardian on the toxicity levels found in drinking water across the country. Let's take a look at this. CR and The Guardian selected 120 people from around the United States to test for arsenic, lead, and other contaminants. The sample came from water systems that together service more than 19 million people. 120 locations tested across the United States of America. Drinking water from 118 of the 120 locations tested across the US had levels of PFAS or arsenic above CR's recommended maximum or detectable amounts of lead. That's happening all over the country. And we know that children are particularly vulnerable. And anybody who has compromised immune systems are particularly vulnerable. But make no mistake, we all vulnerable to this. Jessica?
Yeah, when I think about issues like this, it reminds me of what the economy is supposed to be for as a system. And it's supposed to be for us managing our resources and labor so that we collectively meet our material needs. When you have corporations running the economy for their own profit, you're not gonna have investment in clean water. You're not gonna have people directing their labor towards fighting these fires and ensuring that we actually have an energy system that is not destroying our planet and polluting our water. And this is the consequence of us not having a democratic economic system, is the decisions that are made are not in the best interest of the people. Water is one of the most basic things we need to survive, and they're not prioritizing us having clean water. It's absolutely absurd. Everything needs to change about how we manage our economy, especially when it comes to things as basic as clean water.
Clean water, a public good, a life-giving force that we cannot live without. We will continue to talk about this on Unboss. On to our jawbone. Today, we're gonna feature Professor Robert Wolff, an American Marxist or Marxian economist. And this is what Professor Wolff had to say. He said, freedom, like beauty, and so on, lies in the eyes of the beholder. Freedom to do what? And Professor Wolf, please keep that up. Professor Wolf was having this conversation with Laura Flanders and Dr. Cornel West during an interview and a panel discussion. And they were talking about the impact of capitalism and white supremacy and the juxtaposition of how people always talk, Jessica, about how freeing capitalism is in comparison to socialism. And Professor Wolf hit the nail on the head that freedom, like beauty and so on, lies in the eyes of the beholder. Freedom to do what? In other words, if you are not free to have a high quality life, what does that freedom mean? If you are not free to make decisions about your own body, what does that freedom mean? If you are not free to live a good life, full of opportunities for you and your family, what exactly does that mean? If you have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, is that really freedom? Thank you, Professor Wolf, for reminding us freedom to do what? And that it means different things to different people. Thank you so much for being with us today. Jessica, you were absolutely fantastic. To all of our members, to everyone, thank you so much for your support of Unbossed, and thank you for your support for our TYT network. You know exactly what I want you to do. I want you to keep the faith, but more importantly, I want you to keep the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.